What's up, everybody? This is Justin Flinner coming to you live from Northern Virginia with the Justin Flinner Podcast by My Mature Medicine. Today's topic is about stories, and the title is Stories Suck. We all like a good story from time to time, and it seems a little interesting why I would pick such a title as to Stories Suck. So when I talk about stories in this context, I don't mean the novels that are on the bookshelves in the stores or in the libraries, or any of the stories that you were told about maybe your ancestors or your family, or your friends, etc. The stories that I'm talking about are the stories that go on in your mind. The stories that you have about individuals, the stories that you have about yourselves, the stories that you have about the random people in your life that you come across, whether it's when you go to the mall, when you go to a restaurant, when you go to work, when you're riding the subway, if you have a subway near you, whatever it might be. The stories that we make inside of our minds, they can really hurt us in the long run, especially if they're negative stories. Because the moment we go off into quote-unquote storyland, and we start to come up with all these different ideas, and we waste so much brain power on what may or may not be true, what is the point? What is the reason that we do that? Well, most likely, as human beings, we try to figure out the reason that things happen. We want to know. We were looking for knowledge. We're looking for information. We want to understand why it is people do the things that they do. We want to understand, after we learn that, we want to be able to, when we come across it the next time, we can immediately say to ourselves or to other people around us why it is that that individual is doing something, what choice they made, and why. So we like to have knowledge. We like to fill in the gaps. We don't like to live in a world of unknown. So what do? We create stories about it. It's very easy to do. So if somebody were to suddenly do something wrong towards you, maybe say something to you, or basically accuse you of doing something, it would be very easy for those who are not practiced at avoiding going into story. It would be very easy for you to actually start a new story. Wow, why did they say that about me? Why did they do that to me? Why did they accuse me of doing something that I know I didn't do? Well, that's probably just who they are. Maybe they are missing something in their life. Maybe they're just jealous of me. Maybe they wish they had the same capabilities as me. Or maybe they're just all that and they just want to show off. Maybe they're egotistical. Blah, 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 blah. Well, maybe you shouldn't have gone into story. Stories are the things that can help create life or destroy life. So if you do want to tell a story, tell one that doesn't suck. Now, that can be meant in two different ways. And I actually mean it in both ways. One, that story does kind of suck. Nobody wants to have that story told about them or to them. The other kind of story suck is the one that actually sucks the life out of you. Those kind of stories will do that. Those stories will suck the life out of you because you're wasting so much energy, you're wasting time, you're wasting your breath on creating a story that you have no idea if it is true or not. So why waste those three most important things, which is what our topic this month is about? Conserving your breath, conserving your energy, and conserving your time. If you waste those three things on thinking about something that you have no idea that is true or not, then you've just wasted a moment of your life and you will never get it back. Stories can serve if you know the facts, if you know the background, if you know ultimately what is going to come next. But you must first have the wisdom to be able to tell that kind of a story. You must first have the patience, because those kinds of stories are not told immediately after something happens. They are developed over time. So stories really can suck. And those ones that do will just take the life right out of you. So avoid at all costs going into a story about someone, about something, about some place, about some country, about some religion, about some person, about some food, about something that you have no knowledge about. Do not make up a story about it, and definitely do not tell the rest of the world that ridiculous story that you have just created. You try a new food for the first time and you don't like it, don't make up all kinds of stories about it. Don't create all kinds of new adjectives to describe the food and then tell the rest of the world that they shouldn't eat it because you just don't like it. Well, how do you know the rest of the world might like it and you might be the only one on the planet that doesn't? Your stories will shape the world around you, but first, it shapes the world within you. So the world within you will define how you are in the world around you. So if you don't have a story that serves you, how on earth can you have a story that shapes the world outside of you in a positive way? Stories create the moments of our life, but the ones that suck, nobody wants to hear them, number one. And number two, it's a waste. It's a waste of what? It's a waste of your breath, it's a waste of your energy, and it's a waste of your time. And it's a waste of ours as well. So any story that you have to tell about an individual, about a place, make sure it is one that serves. Make sure it is a story that others are willing to listen to, that will be able to get something positive out of, that will be able to change their life based upon the story that you just told them. So rather than have a story that sucks, tell one that can actually create some life, something new, an opportunity that will open a door rather than close one. Open a door to the new things that another individual can experience. Even if you don't like the food, see if you can tell a story that's positive around what it is that you didn't like. It's like, well, that was a different taste for me. I wonder what kind of ingredients or what method was used to make that food, or perhaps maybe there's another factor that was in play. Who knows? Only you do. But if you take the time to just make a story that doesn't serve about it, then you'll never get to the root of it. So in this regard, I always like to speak a little bit about being an acupuncturist, and in this regard, when it comes to stories, if you were one of my patients, maybe you are, maybe you will be, maybe you were, I don't know. But if you were one of my patients and you came into my treatment room, which in fact is our treatment room, I consider it that way, and you started to tell me a little bit about your life, a little bit about your symptoms that bring you in for treatment, I could immediately go off into storyland and develop all kinds of assumptions about why it is you have those symptoms. It's like, oh, well, they have stomach pain. Oh, they're trying to go on a diet. Okay, and they're eating these kinds of foods. Well, they're probably doing that because no one ever told them better, and they don't know any better either. So they're just following in the footsteps of other people, and they can't make any decisions for themselves, so they're not a flexible person, and they don't have the confidence to be that kind of a person. I mean, of course, these are things that I would never do when a patient is in front of me, in my office, in my clinic, in our treatment room. Why? because that doesn't help me understand the person sitting in front of me. That only helps me understand what the heck is going on inside of my head. But I don't do that. No one should do that. No healthcare practitioner should do that, and especially no acupuncturist should do that. When a patient enters the room, I shut my mouth and I shut off my mind. I do my best to listen with every ounce of my being, with every ounce of my body, with every ounce of all of the senses in my body. I listen to what it is the patient has to say, and I listen to what it is that they aren't saying, because underneath the words there is a ton of information. Underneath the stories that we tell, there is a ton of information. Information about you. Information about whatever it is that you're telling the story about. It could be about a person. So underneath that story, obviously will tell other people what your relationship with that individual is, or those people are, or that person, or that place is, or that food, or that religion, or that country, whatever it might be. Underneath your stories is another story. So if you want to tell a good story, one that doesn't suck, do it in the best way possible. Listen before you speak. I talked about that before in a previous podcast. Those who speak don't know, and those who know don't speak. Don't take those words too literally. I hope that you will speak if you do have something that you know. If you are wise and you have taken the time to learn something in great depth, you should share that knowledge. But if instead you go off in the story and you try to exclaim to everyone that, hey, I know a thing or two about this, or I know something about this person that you don't, you want to hear the latest gossip? Gossip doesn't serve anyone. That's why it's called gossip. Nobody wants to hear it. The people that do don't have anything better to do. Okay? So don't spend your life trying to tell or make up stories that ultimately you know is not going to serve anyone. You might as well just keep going on with your life, acknowledge what it is that has happened, see it for what it is, and move on. Let go of it as best you can. Or, if possible, take care of it right there in that moment. Don't waste any more time on it. Don't waste your breath. Don't waste your energy. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to carry a story around like that, because these tiny little stories weigh so much. And that's why they suck. They suck all the energy out of you, because you have to carry them around all the time. And they feed on all of the thoughts that you have. Why? Because they want attention. These stories that go on in your brain, they want more attention. They want you to look at them. They want you to listen to them. They spin around in your head and they say, check out this story. You remember what you made? Look at me. I'm having all this fun in your brain. Okay, can you give me a little bit more information? Can we talk about me a little bit more? They want attention. These stories want attention. And they shouldn't even be there in the first place. Why? Because they don't exist. They're not true. There is no reality within them. They exist only in your mind. And then when you spit them out of your mouth and you tell the rest of the world about this story that you have, it's contagious. It's a virus. End it. How do you end it? You don't let it begin. So if you're the kind of person that often will lose focus or immediately go off into story about an individual or about some other topic or something that bothers you, whether it's on a regular basis or on a temporary basis, if you're this kind of individual, the first thing you can do is, okay, if you're not practicing getting out of story, then while you're in story, what kind of story can you tell that will actually serve? But if you want to get out of story, you have to catch yourself the moment you go into it. Realize, number one, that going into story can either serve or you can choose that it doesn't serve, that it will suck. What kind of story will you make? What kind of world will you build around you? Remember, These stories are like chapters in the book of life. Your life, other people's lives, and the lives of the generations yet to come. So I suggest that we all avoid going into stories that do not serve. And if we do have the ability to avoid story as much as possible and just observe what is going on around us, the world will begin to thrive in a natural way that it was meant to be. So, the stories that you tell today, tomorrow, the day after, if you tell them, make sure they serve. Make sure they're good. Make sure they're positive. Make sure they're stories that anyone would want to hear. The ones that inspire people. The one that bring people to the edge of their seat and say, oh, what's next? I love this part. Tell me what happens after this. Tell the stories in your life that will change other people's lives in a much better and more positive way. My challenge to you. So if you have a story to tell, share it with us. Send it our way. And we can use it in one of our podcasts later on. Or we can also interview you if you got a lot more to say than just in a short little podcast. Send us an email. Hit us up on social media. Give us a phone call. Get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. That's all for today's podcast. I'm Justin Flinner, and this is the Justin Flinner Podcast by My Met Your Medicine. Have an awesome day, everyone.